Let's see what happens when I do that. I'm recording now. Okay, so this is the recommendations from the detailed SWOT analysis, and I believe we're going to start with. Why is that doing that? Let's go over here. So we just lost somebody. Oh, Jose's back. Okay, Kevin, Chad, and Jose, do you want to go through your recommendations?
Yeah, so we went through kind of painfully going through some of that the SWOT analysis, but these are recommendations that we've come up with moving forward. Customer subscriptions for healthcare care facilities / physicians to increase revenue stream and recurring revenue streams. So this is a two-part position where we're looking at the end user customer subscription to be it, like using the web app you buy the web app for $1.99 or something, to be able to, you're getting that the capability with that subscription for the end user, as well as it's not just the data, it's not just the insurance company, it's not just the end user, it's also we have the doctors, nurses, hospitals. They're all involved. They're a key component of all this. So providing them that software suite and that capability for chat, for centralized records, for other outside data from the World Health Organization, things like that. There's a subscription fee involved with that to as a reoccurring stream. That was one of our recommendations.
Can I just stop you there, Chad, so I'm clear?
Mm-hmm.
So is that an annual subscription?
We didn't define that when we first were talking about that, but that kind of would, you would more or less want something in regards to not necessarily a monthly, but annual would probably be a better.
Okay. And everybody pays an annual subscription regardless?
In regards to coming up with the, looking at from the doctor's point of view, being able to use that tool suite and having access to that data.
Okay. So just so I'm clear on what you're proposing, you're proposing that only healthcare facilities or physicians pay an annual subscription for software for this product.
That's what we were, like I said, we didn't define be it monthly or annual, but yes, that was one of the revenue streams that we were looking at, to have them be able to, because we have to provide support for that, to be able to use the chat tool, be able to have technical support for them to have that centralized data set, provide, so there should be a cost there.
Okay. And is it a fairly low annual subscription?
We did not discuss price point.
Okay. All right.
I think part of like what we started talking about later, as far as trying to make it harder not necessarily make it harder, but make it to where customers can't just bail out. The price point would have to be pretty appropriate. So not too low so that they could just bail and go to Apple or go to some other product. But definitely a level that would kind of make it harder for them to leave the product. So.
Okay. All right. Next one.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Jose.
Okay, just so you guys know, I keep cutting off in and off on the internet. I'm on my hotspot right now because I don't know how the quality is on my phone. Okay, so our segment recommendation is to do pilot testing. So this is going to include beta testing, doing surveys and getting user feedback on stuff like the portal, and what they think about the device, what we could improve on, and stuff like that.
So this is in addition to the key activity building block.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions there? Okay.
The next one here is to develop like an RFQ, like a request for quote or proposal process for developing the wearable technology. So putting that out into a competitive bid to kind of get more of a strength on device manufacturing and get those costs to be dropped, you know, get those to be lowered based on putting it out in a competitive way. So that would be an activity to put in play.
So I'm sorry. So you used the word developing, and then in your description you said manufacturers. So I'm a little confused here now.
So we talked about, you know, because we didn't really have defined the wearable tech. What's it going to be? Is it going to be are we going to have multiple types? Are we going to have, you know, one type of device? If it's, you know, more like the Fitbit without a screen, is it going to have a screen? Will it be a pendant? So we need to come up with a way to, you know, get our requirements down on paper and then get it. I guess we probably should have said manufactured. It's more of a manufacturing cost that we're trying to get lowered or to make more competitive on pricing.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry. I'm confused. Are you trying to contract out the development of the wearable tech?
Yes, that's kind of what we're talking about, because we have the internal working pieces,
Okay.
be it the Intel chip, be it, you know, the biomarker technology. We're talking about actually the manufacturing of the wearable device itself.
I'm sorry. You keep
The shell.
You keep going from developing to manufacturing. They're two different things, and I'm sorry to drill into this. What are you sending out to bid? Manufacturer of the tech or the development of the tech?
Well, the manufacturing of it.
Okay, so because development means design, coding, all those sorts of things, right?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, using the wrong terminology there.
Yeah.
But
So what you're saying is you got this product that you developed a prototype. You want to outsource the manufacturing, right?
Right.
Okay. So it's outsourcing you want to send out an RFP to outsource the manufacturing of the device once you have nailed down what that device is.
Right.
Do I have that right? Okay. So sorry to drill into this, but words are pretty important here.
No worries. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear. Is everybody else clear on that? Okay. All right.
And then that last one was basically planned for the second wave of wearable tech. So from our pilot testing and, you know, getting that piece manufactured out, put in a new activity to plan for the second wave so that we can create something, you know, like version 2, I guess you could say, of that wearable tech.
Okay. Good. Any questions or concerns about these recommendations? And so I had to do it. That last one is a key activity as well. The plan for a second wave of wearable technology.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Next. Okay.
I can start on threats and opportunities. So I was mentioning when we were first going through the stuff at the beginning of the class that I wasn't really a fan of the revenue streams that we had set up. So we decided to add a recurring revenue stream. So there will be like a hardware leasing as well as like subscription fees. And we chose to kind of go, I moved things around on my end. Like I copied and pasted and moved things around to try to keep it concise. But if you look at the last bullet point, we were going to lock the historical data to the Einstein platform to make it more difficult to export if people decide to like move to other kind of like providers. But the subscription fee, we were going to kind of do it the same way that Amazon does it, where it's like 1 year at a time versus like Netflix's monthly fee. So we were going to go about it that route. And sorry, things look different on my end than it does on yours.
Okay, let me refresh my screen then. How's that?
Yeah, that's better now.
Okay.
And you guys already mentioned it in your strengths and weaknesses, but like we're at risk if someone like Apple enters the market, because they're like those diehard Apple fans where they buy Apple everything. So if their Apple Watch starts to do the same kind of features that we have, or even 80% of the functionality, we're likely to lose our people. So we need to ensure that our product is cool and you can personalize it. So I remember like one thing that like Ryan and I talked about in our model was like the swatch kind of thing, where you could like pop it out and you could put it into a watch, or you can put it into a necklace, whatever is your preference, just so you have that personalization and it's more likely to stick with you if you like the way it looks rather than the clunky Apple Watches.
Okay. Can I go back to the recurring revenue stream?
Yeah.
Who is paying the subscription fee?
That would, I feel like we didn't like super cover that, but I was thinking like the same way like end users pay for like Spotify or something like that. You would pay to like just buy the device at first, but if you want to, sorry, we didn't go into super detail because we got kind of rushed, but I was kind of thinking that it would be like you have the device and like it tracks the same information the way like your phone does currently, but then if you want to get the functionality of all the other like Einstein stuff, you would have to do that like monthly.
I think we'd have to have a subscription model, although the pricing tiers might be different, depend on both sides of the equation, right? There's no reason that, well, you could give it away to free to one community to entice the other, but in theory, you could have both physicians paying for access into their patients as well as the patients having access into the system. And I think that's a different tier of pricing depending on the level of integration you've purchased in your subscription.
So what the other team suggested was physicians pay an annual license or an annual subscription. In this case, what I kind of heard is kind of like extending that to the individual consumers. Is that right?
Well, and one of the things that we suggested in our recommendations was to, in addition to the specific integrations we've talked about up to this point, also have the ability to do lifestyle recommendations to the end consumer based on their data, whether it be dieting recommendations or food recommendations, who knows, those kinds of choices. And that might be a subscription that the end consumer might choose to have as an add-on in their experience beyond the overall integration with their physicians. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of different subscriptions you can talk about here as add-on services.
Okay. Again, I think what you're going to need to do is eventually get concrete about which revenue stream is coming from which customer segment. Okay.
Yeah, we have quite a bit. If someone else wants to take over.
Okay. I think we're, and then, okay. So we still have, back to the cool thing, we still have some iteration and some things that we need to work on with respect to the product itself. Okay. Where I think we're down to accommodate personal style choices in device, or are we not?
Right. Exactly.
Oh, you want to go, Troy, or me?
Do it, Demo.
Okay. So with accommodating the personal style choices in devices, this is going back to trying to capture and retain the customer segment. You know, if Apple comes out with something cool, you have the people that's going to say, oh, you know, my Apple phone or Apple Watch can do this cool stuff. Let's stick with this. Well, if you're trying to accommodate some of the personal style, we can kind of compete with that cool factor with the customer segment. And hopefully they will want to stay with us and continue to use our products and use the Einstein platform.
Okay.
And now getting into the advanced reporting, centralized medical records, lifestyle recommendations, this is going into some of the additional features that we can I'm sorry, I forgot the term we use, but looking at additional revenue stream to get from the customer. Here are some additional features that they may want to pay for that they may want to take advantage of.
Okay.
And we looked at advanced reporting. Sorry, brain freeze. But some of the lifestyle recommendations we were looking at is saying, if we are, or if we can somehow determine the dieting of what's going on with that individual, maybe some sensor, or they input certain information because you try to get a full picture. We can come back and say, hey, based on what we gathered, here are some changes that you may want to incorporate into your lifestyle in order to have a healthier lifestyle.
Okay.
If you needed to source from multiple providers for each key activity, this is removing our dependency on a key provider of a key partner that we are dependent on. If we diversify who we're going to get certain activities done, or even certain products, like the actual hardware, or not hardware, but the component for the hardware, that will make us less, I would say, less dependent on a particular or a single person. We'll have options to go through, and we won't have to experience the problem that we had before with the chip manufacturer in the case study when they had problems with their plant.
Okay. So I guess that goes to the next one. So what you're suggesting is to add additional partnerships for suppliers?
Correct. To see exactly, so we can have that competition, because right now it's just those components. So they may not know, well, if we're going to get a chip, they're not going to actually put that chip into the product for us in this example that we're talking about, but sell us that chip, and that's what we need from you.
Okay.
Well, and the next one for licensing patents to manufacturers, that is about the wearable devices, right? One of the things we identified as an opportunity is leveraging our patents and our current knowledge base, allowing others to license that and produce devices that would also feed into the Einstein ecosystem in a non-compete sort of way, right? That they can't use that same chip to feed a different platform, but they could extend our manufacturing capabilities and extend our reach to our consumers by licensing our technology and then developing additional devices that we may not have considered.
Okay. So that license patents to manufacturers is a addition to the key activities.
Correct. And the next one that kind of goes with that too, we talked about moving our chips to the Intel platform to leverage their technology. Dima was quick to point out that a lot of products really leverage that Intel name through the Intel Inside type branding to give it a sense of quality in the market. And we thought that doing the same kind of thing with our products was going to be important. So it looks like it's more than just a generic IoT device, that it kind of has a panache that comes with it, letting people know we're using quality components, letting people know that there's a certain level of expectation of that product simply because of the partners we have in our relationships.
All right. And then lowering.
And then that one, there was a question about whether or not growing markets would help us. And the answer was, we thought that was an opportunity as the market grows to lower the unit costs and kind of help the margin at that point based on the economies of scale that would come with higher manufacturing.
Okay.
So.
And as well as the experience curve, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So while initially it might be really expensive and margins might be thin for us with this product, over time we should see that improve if we're careful and we leverage that appropriately.
Okay.
And I think we already talked about targeting, did we? The last one was, again, a question about whether or not we could benefit from finer granularity of our segments. And one suggestion that points to that, we talked about consumers in a general sense, but there are people that are very health conscious that have special needs. And so as an example, people who are really focused at the gym, you'll see a lot of Fitbits and things targeted and marketed through those organizations. And we haven't talked about them as a channel partner or as a segment in particular. And we might benefit from really driving the device in that segment for people that have specific needs there as well. That might help us penetrate quicker in that space.
Okay. So if I were to summarize, I think where I see some commonalities is that big one is improving the revenue streams. So not just relying on selling the quote, the hardware device, but an annual subscription fee or license to healthcare providers is a second source of revenue, a subscription fee to the end user consumer, the consumer segment, right? And then additionally, that same segment, that same customer segment can add on annual subscription fees for advanced reporting and lifestyle recommendations and centralizing their medical records. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, so we're going to leave it there, and it's going to be up to Ryan to take all this and to update a business model and feed it back to us. And we'll see what he comes up with. So that's what we'll do there. I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to pause.